Coming up on this episode, India and their 1.46 billion people are still without a league. There's madness from top to bottom in Poland. And Christmas Island hosts one of football's remotest rivalries. Hello, welcome to the Sweeper Podcast, the World Football Podcast made in association with FIFA Plus. I'm Lee Wingate.
And I'm Paul Watson.
This is our final episode of 2025, and it's got everything from Poland to Christmas Island. First, though, we're going to bring in our Asia correspondent, John Duerden, to talk about... Well, I was going to say the biggest football story in India at the moment, John, but I guess that's Lionel Messi's GOAT tour, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think the similarity is there's no football being played in either of the situations. The GOAT tour, yes, didn't go very well. As seems to have happened, local politicians and hangers-on surrounded Messi more than they should have done and stopped the paying public who paid quite a bit of money to get a good sight of him. But yes, not the best advert for Indian football when there's no Indian football actually being played, which is a bigger problem.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into that because India is the world's largest country, 1.46 billion people, but currently, bizarrely, does not have a top-flight league. The Indian Super League season for 2025 to 26 yet to get underway. It is a bit of a dynamic situation. There are meetings happening around the time of recording, but we're going to look at it holistically at the events that have led to this point, assess the impact on the clubs and players involved, and look ahead to what the future holds as well. So let's go back, I suppose, to the beginning, John, to the summer, if that is the beginning. Why did India's Super League never start back in September when it was supposed to?
Well, it's a very exciting situation of a master's rights agreement between the Indian FA and the commercial partners that signed 15 years ago and unfortunately was due to expire in the middle of the season in December, which actually has just passed. So the commercial partners were reluctant to start the season when they knew that halfway through the contract would expire. And suggestions were provided. These were not agreed to by the FA, and the standoff has kind of remained ever since. So yes, I think the easier solution in the short term would have been to extend maybe temporarily the season, the agreement to the end of this season, then you have more time at the end of next, a year later. But as things stand, the ISL has not kicked off. It should have done in September, like you said, but now it's December and there's still no football and no imminent prospect of football either.
Wow. So, John, where has this left the clubs in all of this?
In a tough situation. I mean, in the past few hours, some clubs have been asking the FA, look, we need to sort out player contracts because we can't keep, paying all these players when there's nothing going on. Earlier on in this limbo situation, some teams ceased football operations for a while, and there's not a great deal of money in Indian football anyway. I mean, clubs, the franchises in the ISL, which has been going for just over 10 years, tend to lose money anyway. The owners have to kind of suck up those costs, and of course, when there's no season incoming, then it's hard to get sponsors. Of course, you're not selling tickets. Broadcasters not interested, so it's an existential problem. I think the kind of when you talk to people, it's always something will happen. There'll be some football soon, but here we are 3 months later and still waiting.
I mean, what about that? I mean, the clubs is a great question. I'm also thinking about the players, though. I even read that one of the ISL players, his name is Muthu Mayakanan of North East United, has been playing in the Santosh Trophy, which is, as far as I understand it, a state-level tournament to stay match fit. So this must be having a huge knock-on impact on all the players who essentially haven't played for half a year.
Right, and the season isn't the longest anyway. I mean, when the ISL started, it was only kind of a few weeks long, and it's kind of evolved into a 5 or 6 months long tournament, which is pretty much the minimum you can do, really. And now, yes, we're getting towards 7 months since players have played, and maybe it's not coincidence that the national team has been struggling too. Recently, they lost to Bangladesh for the first time in over 20 years, haven't qualified for the 2027 Asian Cup. They did so for 2019 and 2023. So this was the time they thought we can really step up and not only get to the Asian Cup, but maybe get to the knockout stage. and they're not going to be there. And it's quite striking that, you know, they finished below Hong Kong and Singapore in their group, two countries with tiny populations in comparison, and yet here's a country 1.4 billion people can't even qualify for the Asian Cup, can't organise a football league properly, and you know, the national team struggling. The only good news is the women have been doing quite well and they have qualified for the Women's Asian Cup. But apart from that, it's hard to find anything positive.
John, is there any talk of clubs trying to take matters into their own hands, like to take ownership of a league or set up a league of their own? Because it is quite abnormal for them not to have any say in the running of their league.
That's kind of the crux of the problem, because the old agreement was the reliance, the commercial partners would pay the FA a set amount every year, and they'd run the league, and hopefully clubs would get some revenue from broadcasting. The new proposal that they gave was basically similar to the English Premier League, where the clubs would basically become shareholders in the league, to change the financial agreement. But the Indian FA kind of wanted to stick to the old style, where they got like about $5-6 million every year in income from the agreement, and they didn't want to change to this kind of more kind of club sharing agreement. And it's also complicated because the Supreme Court has been involved, and that was the initial stumbling block. Why, you know, getting into kind of boring details, but the Supreme Court was supposed to rule on the FA's constitution, which kind of delayed things as well. But yeah, of course, clubs are hugely frustrated, and they keep writing to the courts, to the FA, to the government, saying something's got to be done because they're in huge trouble. I mean, not that long ago, referees in India wrote a letter saying, look, we're going to have to go back to our normal jobs if something doesn't change soon, because there's no games to referee. You know, we have to get paid. If you don't start playing soon, we'll go and find something else to do, of course, and then there's a knock-on effect all the way down the football pyramid.
It's interesting. I was going to say one final question, and you know, there's always this thrown at India that India is a cricket country. You know, it's a cliche. There's this thing that, you know, we're interested in cricket. That's why football can't succeed. But do you think there is an element of that when they're looking for commercial partners, that people just see cricket as the big sport, or is it more, as you say, because the organisation itself doesn't seem to have inspired any confidence in the way that football's being run?
Yeah, it's probably a bit of both. I think cricket is held up, maybe it can sometimes be used as an excuse, I think, for kind of bad management and planning, but it must have some effect. It's a little bit similar to kind of, we talk to clubs in Asia about the influence of the English Premier League, and many people will say it's harmful on the local leagues and clubs, but I think that covers up a little bit sometimes incompetence at the local level too. But yeah, I think there is real potential. I mean, India is a cricket country, no doubt about it. But if you look at the football stats, there's much more interest in football in places like, you know, Mumbai and big cities. Some of that is European football, of course, and the big stars like you see with Messi, and you know, Ronaldo was supposed to play in India a couple of months ago in the Champions League, but he never came, and there was huge disappointment about that. But I think the difference with cricket and football is cricket is a proper nationwide sport in such a huge country. Football has its pockets, really. I think that's something that has to be addressed, but of course that will take lots and lots of time. I think in the short term, just get some football played, and you know, maybe needs to be made at the FA. Needs somehow get commercial partners involved and get the clubs involved too. But yeah, I mean, it's been going on for months and months, and we're still not really closer to a solution.
The future certainly looks pretty bleak. So for the sake of the clubs, the players, everyone who gets their livelihood from football, and the fans as well, we hope that is rectified very, very soon. John, I know this is your sweeper debut, so you might not be familiar with the way Paul and I do things, but we like to pull out some random examples of the things we've been talking about elsewhere in the world. So we've had a little look around for other leagues in limbo, a bit like India. What have we come up with for this season, Paul?
Well, the obvious on a sweeper perspective is Andorra. And it's quite funny to be comparing Andorra and India, isn't it, in terms of the size of these two nations. But Andorra's Premier League, the Primera Divisio, was delayed because a lot of the clubs were bringing in overseas players, but they were coming in and just trying to get normal visas like anyone else. There's no specific professional sports path to visas. So what it created was this massive backlog where none of these players were getting their visas in time. So most of the teams barely had any players, and they just had to delay the start of the season again and again, a bit like in India. The delay happened once and happened again. They have now got back on track, but And in fact, I think they've got plans for a change in the way that they deal with professional footballer visas to stop this happening sort of year on year.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem in Andorra, really, because 88% of the players in the league are foreigners, according to Transfermarkt. So you have to have some way to sort of fast track them if you want to have a league that can run on time. The other example we found, which actually comes from Rich on our Discord server, we've got a channel where the patrons have taken it upon themselves to be correspondents for certain countries. So they've picked a random country, and some of the detail and research is absolutely fantastic. And Rich has been talking quite a bit about Congo's Ligue 1. They've not had any matches played since mid-2024, essentially due to government interference in the FA's internal affairs, basically. And that even led to, you might remember, Paul, FIFA suspending Congo's FA earlier this year between February and May. But what I think is particularly interesting about this situation is that the Congolese clubs have continued to play in CAF competitions. So the representative AS Otoho have been competing in the CAF Confederation Cups, or the secondary competition in Africa, and they've been winning games despite not playing a league game for a year. I mean, that is sensational.
This is a stunning achievement. It's just amazing they managed that, isn't it?
Yeah. All right, we'll come back to Asia now, John, because when we approached you to talk about Asian football in this episode, India was on the agenda, but the other big one was Malaysia. Now, I am sure people have seen plenty about what is being called the naturalisation scandal, I guess, in Malaysian football. Can you take us perhaps back to the beginning of this one as well and talk us through what's happened here?
Right. Well, in June, Malaysia beat Vietnam 4-0. A fantastic result against one of their biggest rivals and a team that has been better than Malaysia in the past few years. And it seemed like, Malaysia will qualify for the 2027 Asian Cup. But there are 7 newly naturalised players in the squad. I think 5 started and 2 came on as sub, and they played a big part, of course, in the win. And there are kind of rumours over the next few weeks about, especially coming from the Vietnamese media, that there's something not quite right about this. And then in September, FIFA said the documentation regarding these 7 players have been doctored or forged. In October, released a full report, basically saying that the birth certificates that had been provided, and these players come from Argentina, Brazil, Netherlands, and Spain, I think.
Spain,
yeah. And not countries with traditionally close relations with Malaysia, but somehow had a grandparent from Malaysia, as the documentation said, but FIFA said, wait a second, no, we've found quite easily the original birth certificates, and it shows these grandparents were born in the same countries as the players, i.e. Argentina, Brazil, Netherlands and Spain. So the player's been banned for a year, and the FAM, the Football Association of Malaysia, has been fined quite a lot of money, and it's become a huge, bigger than football story in Malaysia because it's kind of national shame a little bit. FIFA basically accused Malaysia of cheating, and Malaysia appealed, it was rejected, and now they're taking it to CAS. Quite why, I'm not sure, but maybe they've got some kind of something up their sleeve. But if they have, why haven't they released it earlier? But yes, it's become a huge scandal.
John, I think it's had quite a big impact on the players themselves, obviously, hasn't it? I think they've been hit with bans on a personal level. I was just wondering, has anyone anywhere indicated what the players thought was going on? Did they believe they were eligible? Why would these players take this risk?
Well, that's a big question. FIFA Pro, the players' union, said the players are victims. But as you said, the players, if somebody says to you, whoever that may be, look, you can play for Malaysia, we can make it happen. Surely your first question would be, well, I'm not eligible to play for Malaysia because I have no connections to the country. But obviously that hasn't been an issue. Well, that wasn't an issue at the time. So the players haven't said anything as far as I know. And they've been banned, of course. One of them plays in La Liga. They can't play in league games or continental games or anything. But it seems, that these are not kind of innocent victims because for some reason they've gone along with, whoever suggested to them that this was an option. And this is one of the big problems with how many Malaysian people see it, I think, is there's no responsibility or accountability being taken in Malaysia. Apparently, nobody's to blame. Nobody knows. It's just one of those things, and there has been a few conspiracy theories from people involved high up in Malaysian football, like a bit of jealousy going on from regional rivals at the sudden rise in Malaysian football. And as I said, unless they have something special up their sleeves to show cast, they're going to lose that case as well. And yeah, it's just bizarre how it's all happened, and nobody still come out and said this person did this and this person did this. Nobody seems. I mean, the full story hasn't come out yet, but maybe one day it will. But I'm not sure. I'm not confident about that really. So at the moment, Malaysia's still been playing in Asian Cup qualification, but when all this process is finished, surely the results will be forfeited at least, and they won't qualify for the next Asian Cup, and maybe not even the one after that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that there's been a sporting punishment. I guess I'm curious, is there any talk of criminal proceedings against the people? Because that is a criminal offence.
Yeah, well, FIFA said it has notified authorities, but in Malaysia, there's still no clarity about who. There's talk about agents and things like this. There is a very prominent figure in Malaysian football who's the Crown Prince of Johor, or one of the states of Malaysia. His father is the King of Malaysia, and it's called TMJ, and he's the owner of Malaysia's biggest team, most successful team, and he has in the past been the president of the FA, and still has some kind of a very influential figure in Malaysian football, but still not quite clear exactly what he does. But in the start of the year, he said on social media, we have identified 6 or 7 players who can play for the national team. Hopefully the government can facilitate this and get these players naturalised. So he has been involved in some way, but again, it's not easy to kind of criticise, and in Malaysia to criticise people as powerful as him. And he has suggested, again, there's jealousy and there's things going on behind the scenes. So we don't really know because there's no transparency about what's happened. So we don't know who suggested this, where it came from, what the process was, and maybe we never will. But I think that's what people want to find out really is, how did this happen? Who is behind it? And who thought did they get away with it, to be honest?
It feels like this might just be a kind of clumsy attempt to catch up with other nations, because naturalisation has been a pretty big theme, hasn't it, in Asian football? I mean, you look at countries like the UAE, their team with just multiple Brazilians. I can't even remember how many it was, but that they routinely are fielding players who have, I think legitimately gained UAE passports. I'm not alleging there's any misdoing, but doesn't it feel like there is a kind of a battleground being drawn, and it involves naturalisation? Often legitimately, obviously, with players with heritage, but it feels like that's a big theme in Asian football right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure Malaysia, that was part of the reason. I mean, they've seen Indonesia, for example, who have come up from almost nowhere, ranked in the 150s and the 60s, to come pretty close to qualifying for the World Cup in the space of 2 or 3 years on the back of, a major naturalisation programme done, within the rules. I mean, this is mostly Dutch-born players with Indonesian heritage. And at one time, I think in qualification, there was 8 or 9 players in the starting 11 who, were born in the Netherlands. And that's a big reason why Patrick Kluivert got the head coaching job in January, because Indonesia become almost a Dutch team. And so why not have a Dutch coach who speaks Dutch and all the rest of it? It didn't quite go to plan, but it wasn't far off. And you see, even with Vietnam, a much more homogenous country, they started to look at players in their own league who can make Brazilians who played there for 5 years and therefore meet the FIFA's rules. So it does change everything really. And as you mentioned, UAE is more about kind of players who've been there for 5 years. So over half of their starting 11 in the recent World Cup playoffs were born outside the UAE. So, it's getting a bigger and bigger issue all the time. And China's tried it as well with Brazilian players. That didn't work. And you talk to people and they'll say things like, well, this is a short-term solution. We're investing in youth development, but that's going to take 10 and 15 years. So in the short term, if we can boost our kind of our national team and boost the football scene, then it helps everybody. But I think that's not really the way it's been working.
Is this all with the sort of increased number of spots available to Asian nations in mind? Because obviously it's an expanded 48-team World Cup, and I think there's double the number of berths for Asian countries. So has this, I think you described it in The Guardian as a naturalisation arms race. Has this naturalisation arms race been because of the expanded World Cup, or is it just a process that's sort of happening across the continent irrespectively?
I think it's a factor, definitely. I mean, teams now that in the past couldn't even dream about getting to the World Cup now think we're not that far away. Because in the past, Asia had four or five spots, and you always knew who those teams would be. Like, Japan, South Korea, Australia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and occasionally you might get an extra one in if one of the big teams struggle. But now you've got nine spots potentially, and that means like there's maybe 20 Asian teams who have a chance, and and a quick chance. And naturalisation gives you, a rapid boost. And as I said, Indonesia got pretty close, and that came in quite a short space of time. And it seemed like with Indonesia, almost every time that they played, they had 2 or 3 new players who have been naturalised. So yes, it's not the only factor I think behind it, but sure, I mean, if you think if we can have a quick, sharp boost to our national team, we might just get into the World Cup. It covers up lots of issues, and I think for the fans, I don't know, I don't speak on behalf of fans anyway, but I think if the team is doing pretty well, it seems like they tend to accept it. It's when results aren't very good and you play in foreign players, like what happened in China. They brought in 4 or 5 Brazilians. Results weren't any better, so fans think, what's the point?
Yeah.
I think we'll round off this segment with a story from South Korea. And I must admit, I don't want to speak for Paul, but I'll certainly speak for myself here. This sort of passed us by, or passed me by. And this is the story involving Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors and their, now ex-coach Gus Poyet. What's happened in South Korea, John?
Well, he's resigned after 1 year. He won the League and Cup double with Jeonbuk. A big team in Korea, but the struggle for the season before, he did very well. I think a big reason he resigned was about a week earlier. His assistant, Mauricio Taricco, who I think he played with at Tottenham, had been banned for a few games, I think it might be 5, hit with a financial punishment because a referee had said that Taricco had made a racist gesture towards him. And this was backed up by the K-League's disciplinary committee, the old slanty eyes kind of gesture that has been used in the past to Asian players. I think, and this has become a big issue in Korea, partly because when you look at photos of Taricco, it's not clear what he's doing. His fingers are next to his eyes, but he said he's saying to the referee, open your eyes, because that was a penalty. This big row going on in the game. And also fans are not happy about the K-League refereeing standards as well. So it's become a big kind of divisive issue. And it does seem a bit harsh that without any what seems to be definitive proof that Taricco did this, that he was punished, and he said, well, I'm resigning, I'm leaving, I'm not staying in the place where people say I'm a racist. And then a week later, Poyet said, well, in that case, he's going too. And it's a bit of a shame. Well, it is a shame, of course, but these kind of international stories come out. There's lots of good things about South Korean football and the K-League, but often it's these kind of issues and scandals that make international headlines. But that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, on that topic, it would be nice to hear a little bit about the team themselves. It sounds like they absolutely powered their way through the season, and I think what you say is a really good point. There is often a problem that we only touch upon countries when there's been a big story, and that is often a negative story. So we'd love to hear a bit more about the club and celebrate the achievements on the field to go alongside this story.
Yeah, well, Jeonbuk are owned by Hyundai, as you might gather. Hyundai Motors. So Hyundai is a big Korean conglomerate, but the other big team, successful team at the moment, is Ulsan in Korea, and they're also owned by Hyundai. But Hyundai kind of heavy industry is more the shipbuilding part. Hyundai has a big influence in Korean football. Most the head of the Korean FA is basically, part of the family, Hyundai family, and that's the way it's been for a very long time. But yeah, Jeonbuk most successful team in Korean football. This was what they called La Decima, the 10th title. Until 2009, I think they hadn't won the league. They were a cup team, but then they started winning titles and they've been a bit of a powerhouse ever since. They should have been the 10th before, but they had one stripped from them because, well, they had a points deduction, so they lost the league for apparently kind of some scout paying off a referee back in the day, 2016. But yes, last season they had some kind of unusual struggles, but under Poyet they come back and been very effective. And he's the only foreign coach in the K-League, which the K-League tends to be a bit conservative in terms of tactics and the way Korean coaches set up. So it's nice to see a foreign coach come in and bring something different, something new. And also it's a bit sad that his assistant's been accused of being a racist, so he's left.
Well, John, I have to say that I've really enjoyed that. Thank you for letting us draw on your expertise for the past half an hour. I think if you want to hear more from John, we would heartily recommend his How Football Explains Asia Substack newsletter. John, I always look forward to that dropping into the inbox. You can also read more from John on The Guardian and World Soccer. And on the topic of World Soccer, our friends at World Soccer have a special offer for you guys. You can subscribe to the magazine for 1 year for £34.99 or whatever that is in your local currency. That's only £2.69 per issue. It's a massive saving and it is a really great magazine. We have a column called Tales from the 211 where we talk about weird and wacky stories from around the world. And John, your writing is very regular in World Soccer about football across Asia. So we would heartily recommend that. There'll be a link in the description if you want to take up that offer. But for now, John, we'll say thank you so much. And we hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we're going to take a quick break now and then come back to tell you all about the craziness of Poland's Ekstraklasa, take a virtual trip to Cocos Island, and briefly speak to another of our continental correspondents. But who could it be? Join us after the break to find out. Welcome to part 2 of this episode in which we'll be turning our attentions to the rest of the world. We've got stories from Europe and Oceania, that's Poland and Cocos Island respectively, but we did tease that we'd be speaking to another one of our continental correspondents. Hello, Ali Howorth, who is just about to board a plane to AFCON 2025.
Hey guys, you alright? Thanks for having me on again.
Thanks for making the time just before you head to the airport. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your plans for AFCON, where you're going to be staying, what you're going to be seeing in terms of games, where you're flying to, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, I can't tell you where I'm staying because unfortunately my Airbnb this morning cancelled my reservation for the month for my stay in Rabat. So hopefully I'll have somewhere to stay once I land this evening in Rabat, but it's a little touch and go. I'll mainly be based in Rabat just because 2 or 3 of the groups are mainly based there, but hoping to get around down to Marrakesh and Agadir and hopefully up to Tangier as well for the group stage. And then knockout stages, it's kind of anyone's game, what games to go to. So hopefully Morocco is actually quite an easy country to get around in. So hoping to see a lot of the country.
Ali, we have to talk to you about your flowchart. You've created an absolute masterpiece. And this is so good because I know a load of people will be watching AFCON out there and they genuinely will think, I love this tournament, but who am I supporting? You know, I don't have any particular attachment to a team. So you have created the ultimate tool to answer that question, have you not?
Well, very much you guys should be taking credit. It was very much Lee's inspiration for me to put this together after, I think it was your San Marinese one. Or Vatican one, I can't remember which. But yes, so put together a little decision tree flowchart to help any fan who's not sure who they should support. And I also said on Twitter that if you still don't know who you want to support, just drop me a message below and kind of, again, inspired by yourselves, tell me what team you support or what you're looking for, and I'll give you a description of the team you should be supporting, and as well as kind of players to look out for, storylines. But it's a lot of fun. Probably the most fun I've had working in a long time putting it together.
Yeah, those flowcharts are a lot of fun, but they are also a lot of work. I can attest to that. We've got to pick you up on just some of the questions in there, which I bet there are amazing little nuggets and facts behind them. So we're just going to read out a selection of 5 of the questions within this flowchart, and perhaps you can just tell us a little bit more about the situation. So the first one that intrigued me was, does the national team have an official dance?
Yes. So that is referring to Congo, the Congolese. I think it was quite a few years ago now. A Congolese artist kind of made a song called the Fimbu, and there was a dance as a part of it. And then the Congolese national team adopted it. And so now, if you see Congo score almost not every goal, but almost every goal, they go and do the celebration in the corner, all of them together, and it's kind of almost a rite of passage. I remember speaking to Jon Wissa about it when he scored his first Congo goal, and he was like, it was really special to be able to do the Fimbu. So look it up. I mean, I can't do it justice myself here, but that is kind of, and as far as I'm aware,
Can you not,
obviously,
Ali?
well, maybe not. But as far as I'm aware, it's kind of the only national team that has kind of adopted a proper kind of celebration dance. And because a lot of others incorporate different dances into celebrations and things, but this is the only one where it's like, if Congo score, you will be seeing the Fimbu being cracked out. Look it up; it is good fun.
Yeah, I imagine it makes Peter Crouch doing the robot look a little bit pedestrian. It's the closest England has ever had, I think, to an official dance.
Not bad.
There's another one, Ali. So this one, I must admit, made me feel quite ignorant. But has their country undergone a coup in the last month?
Yes, so that is referring to Benin, who just a couple weeks ago actually had an attempted coup in the capital, where the military tried to seize the presidential palace. I think it failed in the end, but that kind of happened. And a funny story, so that there's quite a few journalists from the continent, and I have a very good friend who's a big South African journalist, who are being sponsored by the Morocco Tourism Board. And it was kind of this destination Morocco. And so they kind of traveling to all these different destinations that Air Morocco fly to and promoting the tournament. And then they'll arrive in Morocco, I think today or tomorrow. But one of those destinations was in Benin. And it was the day that the coup happened. And so they were, my colleague, who's a journalist, was kind of sat in his hotel, didn't know anything that was going on. And then our other friend called him and was like, "Hey, are you okay? I've just seen the news." And he's like, "Oh, what news?" And he's like, "The coup." And he like looks out his window, and because he can see tanks like rolling down the main street, heading towards the presidential palace. So he's fine. He got out. He is. I think he's now in Morocco. And so, but that is the reference to the coup.
Wow. Not sure about Benin. Definitely be Ben out for me. Get the hell out of there. Ali, do they play host to Africa's most exciting club derby? Who's that a reference to, and what's the derby?
Yes, so this is a rather contentious one, but in my opinion, maybe not the best, but the most exciting derby in African football is the Kariakoo derby, the Dar es Salaam derby in Tanzania, played between Yanga and Simba. It is this amazing rivalry between two clubs that have been there for almost a century. Simba were originally founded by the British workers who were in Dar es Salaam. It was actually initially called Sunderland. The club was called Sunderland. And then another club was formed called Young Africans, Yanga, which was essentially the team for the African laborers who were in this part of town, because they weren't allowed to play in the European leagues, kind of surprise, surprise, back in colonial Tanzania. The Europeans didn't want the Africans playing with them. And so this team, Yanga, was formed. And ever since then, there's been a huge derby between the two teams. But it's quite an interesting one because, it is the Real Madrid and Barcelona. Everyone across Tanzania is from a Yanga family or is from a Simba family. Like, those are your two options growing up. You're red or you're green. But they're literally on the same street in Dar es Salaam. So it's not a geographical thing in Dar es Salaam. They're literally on the same street. You can walk, from one clubhouse to the other just down the road. But it's also one of the most friendly derbies. Because it's not split on kind of ethnic lines, it's not split on religious lines. Everyone is related to someone from Yanga. Everyone's related to someone from Simba. So, I mean, I was there last year for it. And outside the stadium, it's just this massive party. There's street food. There's kind of music blasting. There's party areas. And then the fans come and they chant at each other. But it is very, very friendly derby. But it is, don't get me wrong, it's friendly, but it is also do or die. The entire country comes to a stop. It is the most important fixture in the year, across the year, and most of Tanzania's team have played at least for one of them across their career, including Mbwana Samata, who's their most famous player, who played at Aston Villa. He is a Simba guy, but yes, so that's why I think if you want an exciting derby at the heart of your national team, Tanzania is the one to go for.
Well, the next one, Ali, made me laugh. Just really got to me. I loved it. I think I can guess who to support for this one. Do you want to see El Hadj Diouf loitering around the team hotel?
Yes, this is very much in reference to Senegal. So El Hadj Diouf is kind of this interesting character, right? Because in the UK, he's a bit of a meme. I mean, he played for my club, Blackburn Rovers, and his whole thing was, he's caught offsides all the time. He's got all these antics diving. In Senegal, he is a legend because of that 2002 World Cup performance, 2002 AFCON performance. He is a legend. And he's kind of officially been brought into the national team setup and is paid for by the federation, and his role is essentially just like a mentor figure. He doesn't do coaching, he doesn't do kind of tactical stuff, he doesn't do anything like that. He is just there for the good vibes. So for instance, I was at the Senegal versus Brazil game about a month ago that was played in London, and I went to their training, and he is there. He shows up with the guys, does the keepy uppies beforehand, is having a laugh, is in full kit, like having a great time, and then as soon as the coaches come on to start the actual training, he just walks off. And so, yeah, Senegal, and it is very silly because he is just constantly loitering around. But it also kind of works, and Senegal have actually done really well. And he's not the only one. They also have Kalilou Fadiga, who was another legend of that 2002 team, who is constantly around the team. They've got quite a few kind of these legends, and it is silly, but it also kind of makes sense because they're guys there just to kind of guide the players, help them out. But yes, especially El Hadj Diouf, because he has not changed at all. He's still just a joker, like is always on the partying, like having a great time. So he's kind of got the best job in the world. So yes, if you want to see him around, Senegal is your team.
Right. Well, finally, I think we know what this is a reference to. We have talked about it on the pod before, but does their top scorer usually play at right back?
Yes, of course, the legend that is Emilio Nsue for Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea are kind of a personal favorite of mine. I interviewed him at the last AFCON, trying to speak to him about it and like why it happened. And he was chatting, and he was saying that he came through as a right winger, I think at Mallorca, one of the island clubs, and he was there as a right winger. Had always kind of played as a forward, as a right winger, and then I think it was Michael Laudrup, he said, was the coach at the time, and he said, "I'm not having you as a winger." And he pushed him back to right back. But at that time, he played for the Spanish Olympic team, and then transferred to Equatorial Guinea, which was also at the heart of why FIFA 12 years later said that he never transferred properly. And look into that. They had 2 games that were ruled as losses because 12 years after the fact, because his eligibility was in question still somehow, despite being the top scorer of Equatorial Guinea of all time. But at that time, he transitioned to playing for Equatorial Guinea and was transitioned as a forward. And at Equatorial Guinea, he just stayed as a forward, first on the wing, and then he kind of became a big man center forward. Yeah, so his entire career, Middlesbrough, Birmingham, I think he plays in the 3rd or 4th tier of Spain now, right back, even center back at times. Equatorial Guinea, top scorer, up front, and he does the goods. He won the Golden Boot at the last AFCON, so he's top talent.
Amazing. I think we've got before we let you go, we've got to ask you for some predictions. So we've sort of got them in 3 categories: winner, surprise package, and biggest flop. We're going to put you on the spot a little bit, Ali. Who are you predicting?
I think the winner this is the tournament with the biggest favourite of all probably in about 20 years, and that is Morocco, the hosts. It is almost impossible to look past them. They are such heavy favourites for a reason, so I probably will stick with them. The big flops, that is a tough one, because I think in this tournament there's a lot of potential for flops. I think I might go with Nigeria, just because the expectations are so high. But there's been a lot of chaos in the team. Their captain, William Troost-Ekong, has retired right before the AFCON, and he's a huge part of their team. He was a player of the tournament at the last AFCON. So I think they might be a flop. And one surprise package that might do well, I think they won't go super far, but a very small team that I think maybe Sweeper fans will enjoy watching, that potentially can grow into something more, is Uganda. Very, very small team, not anywhere expected to get out of their group, but defensively strong, 1 or 2 attacking players that are exciting, and at the next AFCON, they'll be one of the hosts. So I think they're building towards something good. So I hope, as an East African myself, that they're the ones who kind of spring a little bit of a surprise.
Sensational as always, Ali, wasn't it, Paul? It's always great to speak to Ali.
Yeah, fantastic. It's so nice to get the knowledge of someone who just knows Africa inside out. So thank you, Ali. That was brilliant.
Yeah,
No
wishing
worries.
you a
Thanks
good
for having
flight. Hope you have somewhere to stay when you get there.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we'll let you go to the airport and we'll hopefully catch you soon, Ali.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks so much.
Always good to speak to Ali Howorth. If you want to see his flowchart for which AFCON team you should support, then we will post a link to that in the episode description. Do check it out. It's very fun to read. Okay, we're going to hop back on across to Europe now, Paul, and we're going to be talking about Poland because Poland has it all this season. The Ekstraklasa is absolutely mental from top to bottom, so I figured that it deserved some airtime. We'll go through sort of the highlights. We love a promoted team in title contention, don't we? A team that's gone straight up and is already competing for the title. Well, the league is currently topped by Wisła Płock. I've tried to do the Polish pronunciation for that. I am sure I got it wrong, but it's better than saying Wisła Płock, isn't it?
Yeah, I liked it, Lee. I liked it.
Yeah. Wisła Płock, only promoted in the summer via the playoffs, already top of the table. But bizarrely, Paul, they have drawn half of their 18 matches. So they've got 9 draws and they've actually drawn their last 5 games. But still, amid this run of draws, they've moved from second to first because the team that was in first, Górnik Zabrze, only picked up 4 points from their last 5 games. So you've got basically a league that nobody wants to win.
Yeah, it sounds more like they're in a relegation battle if they're moving up the league while getting draws. It's really unusual, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. And even the teams in third and fourth, so you've got Jagiellonia Białystok and Raków. They could have leapfrogged them into top spot for the winter break. Both of them declined to win as well. So nobody towards the top in Poland is trying to win the league. But I think an even bigger story is the record champions, Legia Warsaw, currently in the relegation spots. And up until last night, at the time of recording, when they beat Lincoln Red Imps, they were on the longest winless run in the club's entire history. 11 games in all competitions without a win. And it comes in the same season in which they broke the Ekstraklasa transfer record when they signed Mileta Rajovic from Watford. So I think when we think of Polish football, we think of Legia, and they're in dire straits at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it must be sending shockwaves through their fan base because, as you say, maybe it's partly about when we grew up watching football and learning about football, but Legia Warsaw were always the first Polish team that come into your head, and they still are for me, even though I know there are a lot of new contenders at the top. So, yeah, this would be a huge shock if they were to be relegated, wouldn't it?
It's worth pointing out as a caveat that the bottom 9 teams in the league are separated by only 2 points. So a run of a few wins will surely drag any relegation-threatened team out of that that dangerous place in the table. The entire division from 1st to 18th is separated by only 11 points. I can't remember ever seeing a league as close as that.
No, it's if you were trying to set it up for a dramatic end to the season, you couldn't lay it out better than this, could you? It's amazing, yeah. And I think with that in mind, it's kind of amazing to think that you can be in a relegation battle like Legia. It looks terrible, but actually they could get themselves into 4th or 5th place without that crazy a run.
Yeah. I mean, do you know who the only team below Legia are in the table? In very bottom, in very last place?
Oh, it's not the team that we've spoken about in the past for being really tiny, is it?
Yeah, it's the village team, Brukbet Tamalica, from a village of 750 people surrounded by cornfields. And you never guess what, Paul? To add to the Ekstraklasa craziness, they've won 3 of their last 4 games. So they've got pretty much double the amount of points that the league leaders have got in that time.
And haven't they also scored more goals, or about the same number of goals as the team that are top?
Yeah, so Brukbet have scored 24 goals. Wisła Płock, who are top, have scored 21 goals. So you look at this, and I mean, you go through the Ekstraklasa table, and it's just anomaly after anomaly after anomaly. And you know what's quite funny? Posting about this on social media, it's just got loads of Polish fans just being like, "Yep, welcome to the Ekstraklasa." I think they're used to this madness, but I've rarely seen a league table like it, I have to admit.
Yeah, we must have been missing out. We need to do more focusing on the Ekstraklasa, because this is, for us as football nerds, this is absolute gold dust, isn't it?
I did have a brief sort of look around Europe to see if anyone could rival the Ekstraklasa for chaos. The short answer is no, but there are a few quite interesting examples of various things that you might not usually expect to see. Now, when I think of coaching chaos and managers being sacked left, right and centre, Belgium is not the first country that comes to my mind. I have to say it'd probably be Romania, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Italy again has a pretty healthy tradition of coaches coming, going, and coming back again. But yeah.
I think it would be Romania, but in Belgium this season, if you exclude the promoted teams, so that's Zulte Waregem and La Louvière, every other club in Belgium's Jupiler Pro League, the top flight, have sacked their coach since the start of 2025. The last domino to fall was Torsten Fink of Henk. And now every club has changed their coach this year. I just wouldn't associate that with Belgium.
No, and you bet Torsten Fink was sitting there thinking, I'm doing all right, last man standing, and then the knock on the door. Oh, it's like a murder mystery, isn't it? Yeah.
Just before Christmas. It reminds me of when, was it Neftchi Baku sacked Adrian Mutu on Christmas Day?
Sacked him on Christmas Day, but also didn't they sack him while he was at the funeral of one of his parents or something? There was his
mum's funeral,
Yeah, it was really bleak, wasn't it?
Yeah, certainly was. Other sort of strange situations across European league tables. In Germany's second tier, it's a similar situation to Poland in the respect that the league leaders Schalke have scored fewer goals, 21, than bottom Dynamo Dresden, 23 at the time of recording. That's a bit of an odd one. And we love the Zweite Bundesliga because back in January, that was the league when Magdeburg briefly went top at the halfway point of the season, despite being the only team in the entire division without a home win all season. And I remember seeing a tweet saying the chances of this happening statistically are 0, and then everyone was like, "Well, it's not 0, is it? Because it's happened."
I love that. I do love. I mean, I have a lot of time for and respect for these stats websites that tell you the percentage chance of certain things happening. It's amazing how they work this out. I have no idea, but it does make me chuckle when something happens and they say, "Well, I had 0% chance." Because it's like, well, clearly it did. It clearly did. They don't allow for how chaotic and weird football just loves to be.
Yes, they don't. In Portugal, up until recently, both the second and third tiers were topped by B teams. Sporting B and Vitória Guimarães B were both topping Portugal's second and third divisions, which I think is quite worrying for the strength and depth of a country's football system when you've got B teams topping all the leagues. And I think one thing that particularly has caught our attention is some of the longest title winning streaks this season look like they might be under threat, Paul. You've got Ludogorets, 14 years in Bulgaria, Red Star Belgrade, 8 years, Ferencvaros, 7 years. None of them are top right now.
Yeah.
Could it be finally?
It could be. And if it is, we might get credit for ending Ludogorets' streak, because I'm pretty sure we had a podcast episode where we said something along the lines of, I don't know why they bother celebrating anymore. There's a month of the year where you might as well just put them down as champions. We basically massively jinxed them. So the other clubs in Bulgaria, you are welcome.
It wouldn't be the first time we've jinxed someone on this podcast, would it now? We're going to finish off in Oceania, aren't we today, Paul? Because this is the last episode before Christmas. It could be that you end up listening to this after Christmas, but nonetheless, we thought we'd talk about football on Christmas Island to round off this podcast. And it is very much in Paul Watson territory, so I'll pass the ball firmly into your court, Paul, and take it away. What can you tell us about football on Christmas Island? First of all, actually, where is Christmas Island?
Okay, sure. Well, it's an Australian territory, but it's actually about 350 kilometres south of Java, Indonesia. So it's considerably northwest of Australia. It's a lot closer to Indonesia than Australia. And I did chuckle because Lee sent me a message saying, I don't suppose you know anything about football in Christmas Island. I just got someone back going, I thought you'd never ask, finally. But yeah, it's a weird case. So for about 20 years, there were games on and off between Christmas Island and then their neighbours, their closest neighbours, the Cocos Islands, which are another Australian external territory. They had this competition called the Inter-Island Cup, and they'd play it over 2 legs, but the 2 legs would always be played in the same location because I suppose, realistically, you're not going to travel between those 2 islands twice just to play a competition. But Christmas Island always dominated it. They won, in fact, every edition of this competition: 1994, 1997, 1999, 2004, 2005. The closest the Cocos Islands ever got was 2005, where they won one of the two legs but still lost on aggregate. But the thing that I think is most interesting is that in 2015, a Swiss amateur team just rocked up and played against Christmas Island and the Cocos Islands, which is just completely random.
The Zurich Swiss seniors team, very much a team after our own heart, and they've got previous for going on weird tours, right?
Right, so I don't know if they still exist, but at the time they had played, they'd done a tour of Montserrat and Antigua, Gibraltar and the Vatican. So they basically, I think, were just a group of slightly older, senior players who just thought, what would be the coolest places to go and do a football tour? And, in the way that, like, some football teams would be like, British teams would be, let's go to Mallorca and play some games or something. These guys were just sort of obviously had a fair bit of money at their disposal and just thought, how cool would it be to play Christmas Island? So they did. They turned up, and there are still some photos that you can find online of them on Christmas Island. Christmas Island actually beat them 6-1, beat the Swiss seniors. So, they were pretty strong at that time. They then played against the Cocos Islands, and Cocos Islands beat them 2-1. So it was nice for them to finally get their win. But yeah, there's some amazing pictures of them just having the time of their lives on this, what looks like a sensationally beautiful tropical island, living the dream, playing against obscure sort of national-ish or, de facto national teams.
Yeah, this Swiss team basically sounds like us, but without a podcast, doesn't it?
And with money.
Probably more football talent. Yeah,
and more football talent, yeah.
If you're wondering why Christmas Island is called Christmas Island, back in 1643, on Christmas Day, a sea captain called William Miners sailed past it and thought, well, it's Christmas, I'll call it after that. And that's how it's got its name. It is also famous, Paul, for its red crab migration, where basically all the roads closed down so they can let all the red crabs migrate from the forest to the sea, right?
Yeah, so some of the photos that the Swiss team posted were of roads that had been closed with these barriers saying, red crab migration. And one of them said something like, do not drive here, you may crush red crabs. It's like, what? What is this? Yeah. I've never seen... at least the games weren't cancelled for red crab. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it, to travel all the way to Christmas Island, have your game cancelled for red crab migration.
It'd be the most sweeper cancellation ever, wouldn't it? Yeah. Thank you for giving me that little window into football on Christmas Island. I'm sure you've been waiting for me to ask you for the last 3 years, and there it is. It was wonderful. I have to say that people might have been listening to this episode after Christmas, but if it is before Christmas, then we wish them a very happy Christmas, don't we, Paul? We wish you a happy Christmas even retrospectively.
That's how nice we are. We wish it to retrospect. Yeah, no, happy Christmas if you celebrate and if you're pre-Christmas. But yeah, we hope you had a lovely Christmas. And thanks for giving us an excuse to talk about football on Christmas Island, because I must admit, most of the year people aren't asking for that.
Yeah, they're not, are they? And also, just thank you everyone that has joined us or continued listening to us in 2025. It is amazing to see the enthusiasm and the shared interest we have for football all around the world. We love our community. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We couldn't do this without your support. So thank you so much for giving us so much of your time this year.
All right, now it's time for our end of episode game on the spot. And if you enjoy our bizarre facts from around the football world, you should definitely join us on Patreon at patreon.com/sweeperpod, because we're currently doing a blog series about the first football fact that comes to mind about each of the 55 UEFA countries. So do check that out on Patreon, bonus episodes and so on. Plenty of content on there. But now on to On the Spot, Paul. You're 10-7 up. Should we make this the last one of the year? Should we decide who the 2025 champion is? Or does this run on forever?
I think we do an Apertura Clausura model, Lee. So we kick it back off in 2026 and then we play like in Argentina, we should have a series of endless finals that are just you against me, and we both end up winning endless titles that are disputed. That'd be the dream.
Well, you are 10-7 up, so if we say this is the end of the Apertura, I've got to get 4 to win. Do you want to remind people how the game works?
Yeah, so there are 5 categories you can choose from. They have increasing difficulty levels. They are continent, country, city, club, and player. Lee will choose which one he thinks he can name a fact about, knowing that a continent is worth 1 point, a country is 2, a city 3, a club 4, and a player 5. So it's a question of how attacking are you going to be, Lee? It's 10-7. This is your final chance of the year. Are you going to go for? Well, I'd be surprised if you went for a 1-pointer and just conceded defeat. That would be a sort of damp squib of an end, wouldn't it? Or a 2-pointer. So where are you going to go here? Are you going to go for a draw, but no, it's an easier answer, or are you going to go big?
I'm going to play for the win. I'm going to go for a club. So I hope you got something obscure for me to finish the year off on.
Well, it depends. It depends. Now that I know it's the deciding one, I kind of regret I didn't go a bit more obscure. But I've gone for Bursaspor in Turkey.
Oh, I do know Bursaspor. I can do that. That is the club that has the stadium shaped like a crocodile, disappeared from the football pyramid, and is slowly working their way back up to bring that crocodile back to the Super League.
Oh, it is, Lee. Yeah, no, I can't quibble any of that, sadly. I've got to admit, now I'm looking at it, I think strategically I should have pushed harder, but fair enough, Lee. I can only applaud.
Apertura champion. And on that note, listeners, happy Christmas. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye.